Ladies and gentlemen, live at the Opera House and back via Zoom, welcome to the final plenary session, Session 4, which will be our concluding remarks and some recommendations. First, can I just pause to thank those who were responsible not only for moderating and presenting in the breakout rooms, but also to the technical staff who made the magic happen. That was a very major feat to have got everyone into the correct room, and I think that worked fairly seamlessly. So thank you very much to those behind the scenes who helped with that. Can I introduce now our moderator for this session will be Christina Pack, Principal Counsel, Team Leader and Policy Reform, ADB. She'll be joined by Mary Kim, who's the PSDI Team Leader, Senior Programs Officer, ADB, and by Terry Reid, who's an international business law expert and Team Leader, Business Law Reform for PSDI. At the conclusion of that session, we're going to have a Q&A from the audience. We still have audience here at the Opera House. And if we can take your questions over the internet as well, then we'll attempt to do that. But can I hand over now to Christina Pack to moderate this final session.
Thanks, Daniel. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for hanging out, for staying with us. Been a whirlwind today and the last 3 years assisting our, developing member countries with this reform. The purpose of this session is to actually talk about how we're going to carry this work forward, and also to introduce you to our ADB Pacific Private Sector Development Initiative. They've been doing a lot of the business law and private sector reforms in the region. So this technical assistance that's supporting this conference and that's been, helping out with this reform the last 3 years, it's emanated from the Office of the General Counsel under our Law and Policy Reform Program. But now we will be teaming up with our PSDI team to continue the efforts and also hopefully get the other Pacific countries on board as well. So for this session, I'd like to introduce Mary Kim and Terry Reid to talk about PSDI and their work and how they will support this international arbitration reform going forward. So Terry and Mary, I'll hand over the floor to you.
Thanks, Christina, for that introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today. So I work in ADB's Specific and Liaison Coordination Office here in Sydney. You heard this morning that one of the programs that we run from the PLCO office here in Sydney is the Pacific Private Sector Development Initiative, or PSDI for short. And our General Counsel from ADB referred to the fact that PSDI is working across all 14 Pacific developing member countries of ADB to improve the business enabling environment in the Pacific. And to do this, we work through a team based here in Sydney, a core team of consultants, of which Terry is one, and here on the table in front of me we've got some team members here as well. We work also with a team of short-term consultants to help us with our legal expertise and to do as much as we can in the Pacific on that overarching objective of making it easier to do business in the Pacific. So you've heard a little bit about PSDI from our General Counsel as well as Lotte, the Regional Director for our office in Sydney. But to supplement what they have said, I'll just quickly go through how PSDI does its work. So to help the Pacific Island countries to improve their business enabling environment and attract foreign investment, we provide technical assistance and capacity building through a number of focus areas, so 5 focus areas. But the one that we're interested in today is business law reform. So under the business law reform work area, which is managed by Terry, and he'll go into the details of his work after I give you the introduction. We work on the legal and regulatory frameworks, so working primarily with governments to facilitate an environment to make it easier and to do business, and this might be done through drafting legislation, amending legislation, providing training, and working with countries hand in hand throughout the implementation of policies, legislation, and regulations. Lotte talked earlier about one of these bits of work being on foreign direct investment. So we're currently undertaking an FDI study, and that will help inform what PSDI does to help attract foreign investment, to see what the obstacles and hurdles are in specific countries. So we're working at the moment on surveying the foreign investment environment in 6 countries, and that will help inform what we do next under PSDI. So I asked Christina earlier today on what we should talk about during this session, and Christina said, talk about the PSDI takeover on the arbitration work in the Pacific. And so what Terry will do today is talk about what we have done in the past, because PSDI has been in operation since 2007. So there are gains that we are seeking to build on with our future work, and that will include helping with the ratification of the New York Convention, as well as establishing legislation and doing the training as mentioned earlier. We work with a team of highly experienced and qualified consultants, of which I'm pleased to have Daniel as one in our team who will help us move forward on the arbitration work. So what I'll do now is throw the floor over here to Terry Reid, who can give you a bit more information on how PSDI will take this work forward, building on what we have done previously. And we're always looking to work with partners who are active in this space and have the expertise, because, as you know, PSDI is a partnership with the governments of Australia and New Zealand, and we work with all the broad spectrum of stakeholders active in the Pacific. Over to you, Terry.
Thanks, Mary, and good afternoon, everybody. I guess, first of all, just to congratulate Christina and Daniel and Joe and Gary and the team for what they've achieved under this technical assistance to date. I think we all recognise that law reform takes a long time, and typically TA or technical assistance has a much more limited time frame. So I think to achieve what's been outlined today has been tremendous. So congratulations on that. I think another move that the ADB took more recently was to formally establish this law and policy group out of Manila, and I think that's going to bring major benefits, I think, across the bank's portfolio of clients, but also in the Pacific. And I think we're even more fortunate that Christina is leading that group. So I think that we're very well placed now to I know Christina talks about it as PSDI taking over the work, but I think that what we will be doing is simply supporting the great work that's already been done. And as Mary said, the good news is that we have managed to retain Daniel and Joe and Gary as valuable members of that team, and they're going to be leading that work as we go forward. And you'll see that PSDI has a portfolio of 14 countries, and there's still a long list to work through in terms of dealing with New York Convention and implementation of that across the region. Some countries are ready now to sort of kick off that work, and others will take more time. I think that worth noting is I think probably the first major piece of work that the Pacific Department and ADB did on private sector enabling environment was a work they commissioned nearly 20 years ago, which was Swimming Against the Tide. And interestingly, in that work, it highlighted the importance of arbitration and the problems that the Pacific private sector environments were confronted with because of the difficulty with enforcement of arbitral awards. So it's always been on the radar of PSDI, and it was just terrific that Christina established a TA to kickstart that work, and we're going to sort of move that forward. I think it fits in very nicely with the rest of the work that PSDI has done and is doing. As Mary said, PSDI has been going for some time now. It's a long-term TA funded by New Zealand and Australia. I think that we sort of commenced in 2007, which is quite exceptional in terms of TA existence. And the business law program has had a clear strategy in terms of carefully sequencing and prioritising work. There's an awful lot that needs to be done in the Pacific with regard to enabling environments and legal frameworks, and many of you will know that, having worked in the Pacific. So we do a lot of work with regard to the legal identity or creation of businesses at the front end in terms of company law frameworks, looking at business names type work, right through to the other end and insolvency, and of course along the way looking at foreign investment and so on, which has been quite a highlight and discussed quite a lot today. I think there are a lot of points that were made today that I think also come through in our work, not only the foreign investment work, which we've now become much more involved in. Mary mentioned the study that's being done, actually being led by Jared Harrington on this table, that's looking at some of the benchmarking of foreign investment in some 6 countries, but also looking at policy work as well as legislative drafting and implementation. PSDI, because it's a longer term TA, has been able to very carefully plan implementation work. So, and we're seeing that, we saw that in the last TA that Christina has supported, that capacity development, awareness work needs to be ongoing. I don't think that it's something that you do once. I think it's something that you have to keep doing, and I think we're well equipped now to support that work. And in this environment of COVID, we have to look at how we can do that virtually, and we're already doing that in a lot of our programs. I think that the enabling environment generally that we support in PSDI, we talked, as I say, about the connection between arbitration and foreign investment a lot today, and that's clearly key, but also the broader enabling environment. I think the rule of law was mentioned by John Denton earlier on today, how important that is. Also the issue of technology and how we bring that into this discussion. ADB over the last number of years has promoted actively public-private partnerships and work around that. And I think that when we look at regulatory frameworks to support PPPs, the entire enabling environment becomes extremely important and crucial, and arbitration plays a key role in that, given the importance of it in contracting generally. So the business law program is a very broad program, and I think arbitration fits perfectly into that. And I think we're very delighted because now that there's so much progress made, we'll be able to claim that as progress of PSDI and successful PSDI now, and not Christina's TA. So, but look, it's terrific that we're able to support this work going forward, and I think there are countries that will be tuned in online, and I think that if they're wanting to advance this work, you've identified now people, clearly Daniel, Joe, Gary, Christina, and now Mary, myself are here to talk about how ADB can support the TA that's necessary for you to progress this work. So I think that's probably enough of a summary from me, Mary, unless there's anything else you'd like me to mention.
That was wonderful, Terry. Thank you.
Yeah, that was really, really great. Thank you both for, just carrying this great work forward. But I'd like to also, point out that, our work would not have been possible without, great development partners like Untittled, and the international arbitration community that really, really came out to help all of us. So just a huge thanks to the international arbitration community that's been basically supporting us for the last 3 years, and they're supporting us today. And just want to thank all the moderators and speakers, Abhinav, ICC, SIAC, Akika, SIAC, all the great institutions that have been with us. And obviously our experts, Daniel, Gary, and also Jonathan Lim, who's been sort of in the background, but has done a lot of the work as well. So, I just want to really thank everyone, and of course PSDI for taking this important work forward and bringing it to more Pacific countries. And we look forward to supporting you. With respect to ADB's Law and Policy Reform Program, we also have various technical assistance programs to also improve the enabling environment. We also work in other areas like digital economy, gender equality. We also just launched a huge judicial capacity building program. So we just announced that at the judicial breakout session to work with all the judges, including on international arbitration and on other commercial law areas, as well as environment and climate change adjudication. So through that new TA, we hope to have more conferences to promote judicial dialogue and cooperation, and also capacity building in international arbitration. So we hope to see all of you in those events as speakers or participants. I guess just to wrap up, I just also want to thank the entire technical conference team. Big thanks to Outbound Asia, our virtual event experts, Martin Block and Stephanie Lutero, who just did an amazing, amazing job. And of course, to our One ADB team, Terry, Mary, Lotte, our IDT, our events management unit, and of course, our Office of the General Counsel team. So, I mean, they've been working on this hybrid conference, which was actually our first hybrid conference for months now, and they've worked tirelessly organizing this challenging conference. And I have to say, it's, in my view, it was a big success. So huge thanks to Emmy, Angelo, Cecile, Ria, Gladys, Jared, Vladimir and his team, and Vivian and her team. So thank you so much for delivering this hugely successful conference. Congratulations. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of you that are online, and we hope to continue to engage with all of you and work together, because I think it's only with our collective efforts that all this great work is possible, because there's just so much to do to help our developing member countries. So I'll end there. Daniel?
Yes, Christina, thank you. Thank you very much. And can I again take this opportunity to thank you personally and on behalf of everyone here for your support, your leadership in this. You've been absolutely tireless in your efforts in this reform. You have outlived various ministers, various political and election cycles to ensure that in some of these reforms we've been able to finally get them through. So without your dedication and commitment to all of that, we know that Gary and I and Johnny and all those who've helped us along the way are very thankful for your part. And we certainly look forward to working with Terry and Mary. Particularly Terry has been involved on a more ad hoc basis to date, and hopefully a more full-time basis going forward. Terry is one of the unsung heroes of the South Pacific, in the sense that many of his reforms that are going through are far, far more controversial and sensitive than arbitration reform, and perhaps arguably more complex. And I know that Terry conducts and leads those with aplomb. to all of you here, we have an opportunity to actually have some Q&A. I don't know if we're able to do it over the Zoom conference, but I know that we can have some questions here from the audience if there's anyone interested in any aspect of today. We have an allocation for that. So, Christina, I'm happy for you if you'd like to take the questions, or if you'd like me to do it from here, or Mary or Terry. Do we have any questions?
Please go ahead and take questions, and we could all answer them together.
Okay, great. Do we have anyone in the room who'd like to ask a question? It's very unusual for a room full of lawyers for no questions, but no. All right, everyone's keen to complete today. It's fair enough. It's been a long day. All right, Christina, perhaps you'd like to make your final concluding remarks.